Hi, this is my Genius Hour project titled My Smartwatch and Me. I'm Lars Nelson, and I have been exploring the new Garmin Forerunner 255 Multisport watch. So I got this watch, here it is, in mid June, and had over 6 to about 7 weeks to explore the functions and features. Some data sets require 3 to 4 weeks to average the data before it becomes reliable and it shares it. And so I've had that much time, and I've been using it 24 hours a day for the last 45 plus days. So I'm going to share what I've learned over the past 7 weeks after daily monitoring of all of the data sets from my smartwatch. Here are the goals. Number one, I just wanted to understand the features and functions. I wanted to use the GPS mode for all of my cycling, running, hiking events. And since it's summertime, I've had a lot of those, which is nice. I wanted to monitor my sleep patterns, my sleep score, different phases of sleep. I wanted to monitor my VO2 max values, which is your volume of oxygen in units of milliliters. But it relies on 4 weeks of data for that, so I have that. I wanted to monitor my what they call body, battery, and stress levels. Monitor my heart rate and my resting versus the high values and my average heart rate variation, which they call the HRV values. I wanted to monitor my respiration, which is in breaths per minute, BRPM. That's the data they provide at asleep versus awake. So I keep the watch on at night. And I wanted to observe and respond to some of the training status, the load, and the coaching recommendations that the watch provides. It provides all these different recommendations based on your personal information and the data that it collects. Some of the functions are familiar to me, some are unfamiliar. And so I tried to treat this like learning like a scientist. My old smartwatch, which I had for over 3 years, could do what typical fitness watches do. You know, it measures steps, how many flights of stairs, calories, provides some information on your body battery. It has some GPS functionality for tracking sports activities. These are pretty common, pretty familiar. They've been around for a while, but the new smartwatch I have can do a lot more. It can measure HRV, VO2 max, the load, the pulse ox. That's a little tricky. SpO2, as they call it. That's like the dissolved oxygen in your blood. And it's a little tricky how it does that. Some of that data became much more published and publicized during the pandemic with COVID, because those values you want to be above 95%. Not sure how reliable that is, though. The breaths per minute, asleep versus awake. I also wanted to look at sleep score. My sleep patterns have changed a lot. It analyzes deep sleep, light sleep, REM sleep versus minutes awake and total sleep. And it provides every morning like a sleep score based on that. It gives you a fitness age, and it compares it to your real age based on your VO2 max, all of these values that you put in there. So it has to know a little bit about you, your personal information, and then it uses the data it collects to statistically see where you fit. And it even gives you like a percentage if you're in like the top 20% of your age, or in the middle if you're, they give you little bar graphs, kind of like box and whisker graphs, if you're in the zone that you want to be in. It provides training status, personalized coaching if you want it. I didn't get too much into that. I tried a little bit. But some of the coaching, like maybe I can't, I don't have time that day, or I do it on a different day. It observes intensity minutes in 3 categories: low aerobic, high aerobic, and anaerobic. It communicates with my bike computer that I have, and a power meter that's attached to my bike. So for cycling, I do a lot more cycling than any other event. And these are all new features, which is amazing. And my motivation why I wanted to do this is, I'm just getting older. My health's important to me. I've got 3 children. I want them to have a healthy dad. I want to be an active grandparent when I become one, when I retire. I've experienced a lot of changes to my overall health, as I'm sure we all have as we age. My sleep patterns have changed. I need to be much more aware of my physical fitness and health. I have new goals. My smartwatch actually helps me align to those goals. And the tracking features, the GPS features, help me improve my performance. I've noticed that my performance has gotten a lot better over the years. And this summer, as I've explored this new watch, the data is even more reliable. And I feel like it helps me not only to meet my goals, but it helps to improve my health, monitor the data. So I'm much more aware um, of my overall health. Okay, so looking at the 3Ds. Science and engineering practices. I think this was fairly, I found 7, there's a lot of questions I asked. How does it record SpO2, the dissolved oxygen? I'm a little still hesitant about some of that. How does it measure your VO2 max, your maximum volume of oxygen that pumps to your brain? Now that one's kind of interesting because I have a low heart rate, which is good. It means your heart's not working as hard. But at the same time, for VO2 max, it could be bad because that means you're not pumping as much oxygen through your respiratory system. But after 4 weeks, it starts to analyze the data, then share the data with you daily, and it starts to average that and show you where you're at compared to your average. And so far, it's pretty reliable, and it's good data, and it uses the power meter on my bike to help get my intensity when I'm cycling. So there's a lot of questions I've been asking. I've been carrying out investigations. I've been testing it on hikes, bikes, runs. I've been analyzing, interpreting the data. What does this mean? What doesn't it mean? How can I use this data day to day, week to week, or month to month after I have 4 weeks of data? There's a lot of computational mathematical thinking because all of the data is numeric. All of the data provides quantitative results, but also little graphical results. It shows you if you're in the zone or if you're, in a zone that you should be worried about. It helps explain. You can construct some explanations for why you have certain values. If your breaths per minute are low, if your heart rate at rest is low, if it's high, if your volume of oxygen, your VO2 max values are low versus high, you can start to build these explanations and explain what that means, because there can be reasons why a low heart rate is good or why it's bad. There can be reasons why your VO2 max level is good or bad, but it all depends on you and some other sets of data. So you do, like number 6, have to engage in a lot of arguments with some of that evidence. And you also have to be skeptical. You have to make sure you understand that this is not a doctor. This is not a blood test. This is a smartwatch, and some of the values are more reliable than others. And at the same time, you have to be careful what you focus on. And of course, as you obtain, evaluate, and communicate that information like I am now, it forces you to synthesize what you've learned. Cross-cutting concepts. There's patterns of data. There is some cause and effect because you're looking at what you're doing has what effect. And some of the things that you do affects your sleep. Some of the things that you do affects your heart rate and your heart rate variation. Some of the things you do affects your oxygen saturation, of the volume of oxygen that you pump. Some of what you do affects different types of sleep. Your anaerobic, your aerobic, high aerobic, low aerobic activities. Some of it affects your body battery. When you look at your body battery, all of these things are interdependent. Energy and matter flow cycle conservation. I mean, you could think of this as you consume matter, it gives you energy. Some of the amount of matter that obviously that you're consuming has the ability to provide some of the energy for those activities that you're doing. And of course, stability and change. Every day there's a bit of change. Every week there is some change and variation, but you hope that over longer periods, after week to week or month to month, you could see some stability. You can start to normalize your data and see if you are meeting some of those targeted goals. Then you can also try to make changes to your lifestyle. I broke it down to 4 DCIs. I didn't put the grade levels here because I think they could fit at different levels depending on who you are. But I mean, there's 2 physical science standards, relationships between energy and forces. Obviously, you're using energy and you're applying forces throughout all these activities. Energy and chemical processes in everyday life. That's the uh, relationship between what you're eating and what you're doing in your physical activity. Structure and function for life sciences. You can think of this as obviously just looking specifically the structure of your body, how it functions. You can look at this as the structure of the watch, its function for measuring some of these values. Um, Organization, life science, 1C, organization for matter and energy flow in organisms. Obviously, you as an organism, you're talking about how your body digests matter, how it processes energy, how energy is transformed from chemicals, heat, to kinetic energy, to motion, to activity, and how you cycle that over time. And I think if I tried to do one of these projects on my own, I would like this idea of a video. I think it's great, forcing students to summarize what they've learned in like a 3 to 5 minute video. It's hard to do it in a short amount of time. I like the rubric here with some minor adjustments. A narrated video is a great idea, though. I think it's perfect. And maybe I would ask students to focus on just 2 to 3 CCs or 2 to 3 SCPs, or maybe just 1 or 2 DCIs. I might ask students to share failures, what they learned from what aspects of their projects that didn't work as planned. And I might ask students to comment on 2 to 3 other projects and provide feedback for other. And the nice thing about videos is you can post them, you can share them, and students can watch them at different times asynchronously. Okay. Thanks.